Hey everyone, I'm back. We're going to pick up again with the scripture in Revelations 9, where we're talking about these beings that come from the bottomless pit and what the Lord is showing me. But we're going to start back. I just want to refresh everyone's memory on this scripture in Isaiah 66, verse 4. And it says, I also will choose their delusions and will bring their fears upon them. Okay? We're going to go back over here to Revelations 9. Now, as we talked before, that's talking about the Lord using man's delusions against him and using it to bring fear upon him, okay? Now, one thing I want to point out here, we're going to go straight to verse 7. And we see that it says, the shapes of the locust were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions, and they had breastplates as it were breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men for 5 months. Okay, one thing I want to point out about this is we saw in Isaiah 66, verse 4, it's about bringing fear, okay? And here we see in verse 10, of course it mentions it in verse 5 as well, but it says it again here in verse 10, their power is to hurt men for 5 months. And then in verse 5 it says that they are to torment men for 5 months. And I want to show you again, since we're talking about fear, we're talking about hurting and tormenting. We saw in 1 John chapter 4:18, it says, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, but fear hath torment. So see, we see here the scriptures even say, in 1 John 4:18, fear hath torment. And see, that's what the devil is striving for. Because if he can distill fear in man, keep man from turning to the Lord, and distill fear in him, it is tormentous to mankind. And it will be easier for Satan, through the Antichrist, in this world system he's going to set up, to control men with that fear factor in place. Okay? What I want to show you right now is where we looked at the description of these things. Okay? And a couple of things I want to point out is I had been praying to the Lord, asking him to give me better understanding, because there was some things I felt like I needed clearer understanding on, because I didn't know how to approach this particular scripture as it gives description here, because I didn't have a clear understanding on what these descriptive scriptures meant. And I had prayed and asked the Lord to give me better understanding, and I was standing at the in the kitchen looking out the French doors up into the sky, and it was just a big wide open area of glass where I could see clearly up into the sky. And these orb things started forming, and they were like these small orbs off in the distance in the sky, and they were just increasing in amount, and they just more and more kept coming. And it was like they were just buzzing all over the place, back and forth, back and forth. And I was like, Lord, are you showing me something? What is this? And then I come in here after that. I mean, I stood there and the Lord showed me that for several minutes. And it was just like I don't know quite how to explain it other than it's almost like so many that they were just like maggots just mulling back and forth, And then I come in here and open my inbox, and I had a message. I can't remember what the subscriber was, but they were sending me something about the locusts. They had sent me some information on locusts. And the thing that the Lord just smacked me in the face with was what he was showing me. This person had sent me a message talking about how the locusts swarm. And the Lord just smacked me in the face. That's what he was showing me. Because here we clearly see that it says the shape of the locust. And we know that the locusts came, these locusts, which is not a literal locust, but it's symbolic. And it's symbolic for this reason, and this is what God showed me. The term locust is used here because of the characteristics of locusts, of how they swarm and how they devour and how they leave the land desolate. And that is the whole purpose of this term locust being used here in Revelations to describe these beings that come out of the pit. We also see in Joel chapter 2, and we'll look at that some. I don't know if we'll get it on this video or not, but how chapter 2 of Joel and this chapter of Revelations 9 give us, they're both talking about the same thing, and they give us a clearer understanding of the capabilities and the characteristics of these beings that come out of this pit. And we do know they are demonic, okay? All right, here we talked about the locusts and what that means here. And it goes on to say, the shapes of the locusts were unto horses, prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as it were crowns of gold, and their faces were the faces of men. Now try to picture this as we go. I mean, this is something that's just, I've read this and read this and read this, and have never had a picture in my mind of what this could actually be describing until yesterday morning, when the Lord had me going back over this and I was seeking him for understanding. Okay, it goes on to say, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions, and they had breastplates, as it were breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings were as the sound of chariots, as many horses running to battle. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men for 5 months. Okay, the thing that the Lord gave me a picture in my mind of here, excuse me, I'm trying to adjust this camera. I'm just going to show it to you. You know, you can go to the Lord with it and ask him about these things. Now, I'm not saying, when I show you this, I am not saying this is exactly what the scripture is talking about, but this is the picture that the Lord gave me in my mind. This is the thing that the Lord showed me in my mind. And there's several points that he's trying to make with this, and I'll explain it after we look at these, okay? All right, first, here. You see this picture is a picture of what is called a centura, I think is how you pronounce that. I'm not certain. But it is basically what we know as a mythical creature that is half man, half horse. And when we read these scriptures, and we look at how it has the shape of a horse prepared unto battle, faces of men, hair of women, breastplates of iron. We can see how this is starting to give us an idea, maybe, of what is being alluded to in these scriptures, okay? And let me show you a few more pictures here, because I don't think we'll be able to find any one picture that fits it entirely. And here we go again. It's the half horse, half man thing in a very, I don't know, bizarre picture here. Here is one that I think is extremely interesting when you consider the fact that this is demons. If you see here, see how it's got this right here that's like the hair of a woman, the crown, the wings, okay? And then look at this tail, okay? So, you know, that's a good picture of illustration of what is being alluded to in these scriptures. Now, this one is more animated, but I just wanted, with this one, I wanted to show, for instance, up here, you know, the hair, how that could be as the hair of women, and these horns could even be as the crown. And then you see this chest on this, the breastplate. Let me go to the next one. I have to blow these all up a little bit. And here you see another one. Again, we've got the hair of a woman, body of a horse. I'm not sure what all's going on in this picture. I don't know what this over here is. But basically, you see he's at war. You get the idea of what I'm saying here, okay? And this one is extremely interesting because we're talking about these things being also of alien nature. And this one even has an alien head. Look at that. Okay, and of course these are just pictures that people have, for whatever reason, drawn up to illustrate something, but I find it very interesting. These, of course, we know art and pictures come from the minds of people, especially things like this that you can't just go out and take a picture of. So that goes back to the idea of delusions in men's minds, okay? And we see here the mixing of human and animal. And look at the tail on this. If that's not a description of a horse with a scorpion tail, I mean, where's this stuff coming from? You know what I'm saying? But anyway, my point is this. Oh, I've got to show you this too. Now, we got to look at how this has been perceived throughout mankind. You see this? This is an old coin, an old Roman coin, that actually has one of these centras on it. The human, a half human, half horse creature on it. And here we see it again. So, you know, it's something that's been in man's mind throughout history. And then here we even see it, how it's been used in art, in what looks to be maybe Egyptian art, maybe. And here we see it again. So, you know, this is something that's been in man's mind, and where did this come from? It'd be my question. And it's like God was showing me this very well fits this description. But one of the main things the Lord was pointing out to me within this, let me get back here to this one, is how we know that there is mixing. Man has gotten himself involved in mixing of DNA, where they're trying to, I don't know what it is they're trying to do, but where they even take human DNA and animal DNA, and I'm sure there are things that have gone on behind the scene that we are nowhere near aware of. But what God is telling me is this is about the abominations that man has also telling me is about the abominations that that man has created against God with this mixing of DNAs, okay? And I'm going to stop this one off right here, and I'll be back.